There seems to be an unspoken rule in nature. Life in the oceans and seas is almost always far more terrifying than life on land. This is something we can observe today, and it is a pattern that repeats itself throughout Earth's history. Even during the age of dinosaurs, the oceans were home to aquatic nightmares that would have inspired far more fear than predators like Tyrannosaurus rex or dromaeosaurs ever could. In fact, it is surprisingly difficult to find any point in Earth's past where your chances of survival were better in the water than on land. Almost always, the oceans were more dangerous. However, there was one brief window of time, very long ago before dinosaurs even existed, when the opposite was true. During this period, survival odds were actually higher in the oceans and seas, because nearly everything on land, including the environment itself, seemed designed for maximum lethality. This time period was the Lopingian. The name may mean nothing to you, but it represents the final epoch of the Permian period and lasted from roughly 259 to 252 million years ago. This was one of those moments in Earth's history when the planet would have been almost unrecognizable in nearly every possible way, including the passage of time itself. During the Lopingian, the Moon orbited Earth closer to what it does today, which caused days to be shorter, lasting only around 22 hours. Geography was equally unfamiliar. Most of Earth's landmass was fused together into the supercontinent Pangaea, meaning that Africa, the Americas, Antarctica, India, Australia, and large portions of Europe were all connected into a single massive landmass. Only to the far east could you find reasonably sized landmasses free from Pangaea's grip. The largest of these islands consisted of what is now Siberia, Kazakhstan, and North China. Further south was another island made up of South China and regions of Southeast Asia. Additionally, modern-day Turkey, Iran, and Tibet were also isolated islands at this time, surrounded by the Tethys Ocean on one side and the Paleo-Tethys Ocean on the other. While these seas were undeniably large, they were still insignificant compared to the true giant of the time, Panthalassa. Panthalassa was a prehistoric superocean unlike anything before or since. It covered over 60% of Earth's surface, making it roughly twice the size of today's Pacific Ocean. Just imagining an ocean that vast is nerve-wracking, and it would seem logical to assume it was filled with unimaginable horrors. Surprisingly, however, Panthalassa and the other oceans of the Lopingian were actually fairly tame when it came to large predators. Sharks had already existed for over 200 million years by this point, and if you're familiar with Permian marine life, you may be thinking of Helicoprion, an 8-meter-long shark famous for its bizarre spiral-shaped tooth whorl, one of the strangest and most unsettling jaws ever evolved. While Helicoprion lived during the Permian, it had already gone extinct before the Lopingian began, leaving the oceans surprisingly empty of truly massive predators. Relatives of Helicoprion still existed, but none reached comparable sizes. The largest of these, Hippodons, reached only about 2 meters or 6.5 feet in length, similar to a modern leopard shark. Its teeth were adapted for soft-bodied prey like squid, not large bony animals, making it far less threatening. Other shark groups, such as xenacanthids and hibodonts, were even smaller, typically growing no longer than 1 meter. Eurypterids, often called sea scorpions, were also present, but they were in serious decline. Once highly diverse and gigantic during the Devonian period, they had never fully recovered from the Devonian extinction event. By the Lopingian, only 2 genera remained, and neither were large nor apex predators. In fact, most marine groups were struggling. This was partly due to the Capetanian mass extinction, which had occurred roughly 2 million years earlier. Though relatively obscure, it was more deadly than both the KPG extinction that wiped out the dinosaurs and the Triassic-Jurassic extinction. While its effects were felt everywhere, marine life suffered the most. As a result, the Lopingian seas contained trilobites, ammonoids, and brachiopods, but none in large numbers or sizes, and conditions were about to get much worse for marine life. At this point, the late Permian waters may sound boring, but that is precisely what made them appealing. Compared to what was happening on land, the oceans offered a rare sense of relief. On land, there were no such breaks. The Capetanian extinction devastated terrestrial ecosystems, but land life recovered more quickly and arguably became even more dangerous than before. The extinction wiped out the previous rulers of the land, the dinocephalines, opening the door for new apex predators to rise. That door was kicked wide open by the Gorgonopsids. Discovered by paleontologists as early as 1876, Gorgonopsid fossils were so terrifying that researchers named them after the Gorgons of Greek mythology. While diverse, Gorgonopsids shared common traits: long, narrow skulls, parasagittal gaits, deeply set jaws, and elongated razor-sharp incisors and canines. Unlike many of its relatives, Innistronsevia was built for power and speed. Its long, sturdy limbs allowed it to pursue and overtake medium to large-sized herbivores. Once caught, prey stood little chance. Its upper canines measured up to 15 centimeters or 6 inches long, among the largest teeth found in any non-mammalian theracid. These teeth were curved and serrated, ideal for slicing through flesh, causing catastrophic blood loss and organ damage. Exactly how Innistronsevia hunted remains debated. Some paleontologists believe it used tactics similar to saber-toothed cats, delivering precision bites to the net. Others propose a bite-and-release strategy, letting shock and blood loss finish the job. Either way, death would have been brutal. Adding to the danger, Innistronsevia was widespread, roaming across parts of Africa, Asia, and European Russia. It thrived in diverse environments, from warm floodplains in South Africa to cold, arid deserts in Russia, where life clustered around shallow lakes and sparse forests dominated by glossopterid plants. Because of its presence in cold climates, some researchers speculate it may have had fur, though this remains unconfirmed. As terrifying as Innistronsevia was, it did not rule alone. The late Permian was dominated by Gorgonopsids of many sizes. In European Russia, species like Pravoslavia and Sugogorgon filled smaller and medium predator roles. In South Africa, things were even worse. There, an entire subfamily of giant Gorgonopsids evolved independently, the Rubigines. While Innistronsevia was the largest individual Gorgonopsid, Rubigines were, on average, the largest group. They were characterized by massive skulls, deeply serrated teeth, frequent tooth replacement, and thick cranial bones with evidence of skull bossing, suggesting intense grappling with large prey. One notable species, Rubigia atrox, reached lengths of up to 3 meters or 10 feet. Its skull alone accounted for over 15% of its total body length. Despite a surprisingly modest bite force, around 715 newtons, only slightly stronger than a wolf's, its teeth were so perfectly designed for piercing flesh that bite strength mattered little. Evidence suggests rubigines often lived alongside Innistroncevia, sharing similar prey and habitats, likely leading to frequent conflict. Together, they reshaped entire ecosystems. But even this wasn't the full picture. The late Permian was also home to the Therocephalians, another group of theracibs. Originating in the Middle Permian, they were more diverse than Gorgonopsids and spread across Russia, Africa, Antarctica, and China. While most were predators, a few were herbivores. Therocephalians often resembled Gorgonopsids but differed in key ways: broader skulls, smaller, straight teeth, shorter bodies, and more compact builds. Some, such as Echebobrops and Eucharasia, may have even been venomous, potentially making them the first venomous tetrapods. Others, like the semi-aquatic Ichthyosaucids, hunted near water, while fully terrestrial forms developed unique saber teeth. The most successful among them was Moschgarinus, a jaguar-sized predator with a lion-sized head, powerful forelimbs, and a strong bite. Fossil evidence suggests it was among the most abundant predators of the late Permian and may have replaced Gorgonopsids in some environments. Even larger theracibs existed, such as Megawhitesia, a 3-meter-long predator from European Russia. Coprolite evidence suggests it fed on large dicynodons, possibly using venom, though this hypothesis remains debated. Beyond theracibs, there were still more dangers. Proterosuchids, crocodile-like reptiles with long, needle-shaped teeth, were widespread terrestrial and semi-aquatic hunters. Chroniosuchians, armored reptile-like animals, patrolled rivers and floodplains, with some reaching the size of female American alligators. Freshwater environments were especially deadly due to giant amphibians. Rhinosuchids were massive ambush predators resembling oversized salamanders or crocodiles. The largest, Uranocentrodon, reached over 4 meters in length. In European Russia, similar niches were filled by archaeosagorids like Melosaurus, which could grow up to 3 meters long. Despite all of this, herbivores persisted. Dicynodons, parasires, captorhinids, and parareptiles filled ecosystems across Pangaea. Lystrosaurus, a pig-sized dicynodon, was among the most common animals, using tusks and powerful limbs to dig protective burrows. Other groups evolved similar strategies independently. Parasires took a different approach, becoming heavily armored tanks. The largest, Scutosaurus, weighed over 1.2 tons and relied on thick armor, spikes, and dense muscles for defense. The skies, at least, offered some relief. Unlike the Mesozoic, the Permian had no massive flying predators. Giant insects existed, but were rare, and the largest flying vertebrates were small gliding reptiles no bigger than modern bats. But the final horror of the late Permian wasn't an animal, it was the planet itself. Average global temperatures reached around 35 degrees Celsius or 95 degrees Fahrenheit, creating massive deserts and severe droughts across Pangaea. These conditions were bad, but they were nothing compared to what came next. Around 252 million years ago, Earth entered the Permian Triassic extinction event, also known as the Great Dying. Triggered by the eruptions that formed the Siberian traps, volcanic activity on an unimaginable scale flooded the planet with lava, carbon dioxide, and sulfur gases. Temperatures skyrocketed, oxygen levels plummeted, oceans acidified, and the ozone layer may have been severely damaged. By the end, 57% of biological families and 83% of genera were extinct, the worst extinction event in Earth's history. Ironically, even during this brief and horrifying chapter of Earth's past, you truly were better off in the water than on land.